there's my find right there. Stopped by here the other day. I had my eyes on this thing about a year. Finally seen the owner. He said, get it out of here. So I'm gonna get this. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of them right there. That problem right there. Them old bees right there. Where are them bees at? There you are right there. I'm gonna get rid of them things first. As soon as I do that, I'm gonna start getting this thing down. I'm gonna saw it down with a sawzall. But before I saw it down with a sawzall, everybody makes a mistake and bam, and everything falls apart and tears up. I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna do a total breakdown on this thing. They gone now. That's the first thing you do. You take care of them bees. It should have took care of it right there. Look at that. They're gone. There's one or two hanging right there. I'm gonna get them too. Right there. Gotcha. See, it don't matter how much you spray on there, 'cause I can always wash it off. There's another one right there. Gotta get them gone. Gotta get rid of all them bees. I can start breaking this thing apart. I don't need no pole this long. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut it across just like this, cut the tree down. It just falls on over. When the pole is down by itself, you ain't gonna hurt nothing. How you gonna hurt a pole? But I ain't gonna sit there. I'm gonna take it all apart first. Then after I get it all apart, disassembled, I'm gonna stick it all in the truck nice and neat and go right on down the road. Now that dish is all in one piece. If it was in sections, I'd take it all apart. But it's like a 5-footer. It's very simple, no big deal. Pull it all apart, stick it in the truck, and haul butt to the house. I have me a nice little dish here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this thing apart and heck, get it on to the house. All right, another thing you want to do, get you some of this stuff here. I don't think I need it. Everything looks simple. It looks like everything's gonna come apart. So, but nevertheless, I'm gonna squirt me a little bit of this blaster on each one of these bolts. And like I say, I'm gonna pull it all apart. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and loosen these first, get it where I can kind of jerk it around. We know it's gonna come on down. But the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove that LNB assembly up front. Then I'm gonna drop this. So what I'm gonna do, I loosen the top ones first, get it where it's kind of going out a little bit. I got a rope. I take my rope, run them through my holes on my dish, and I loop it back, and I hold it here on the bottom here. That's how you pull these things down. Then you loosen these tops, and you tie it off first. Then you loosen them bottom ones, and you slowly lower it with the rope. Real slow. Don't drop it. It'll come down there and let it lean right there on the ground. Then I'll remove my assembly, my brackets and all that stuff. I'll do that next. And I'll set all this stuff aside. Then I'll start breaking all this down and setting it in the truck. That's the easiest way to do it. Don't try to sit there and just let it fall over. Get you a rope. I've done it many times. Once you get you some holes in there, you run your rope, you loop it, then you run it right here on your bracket. Then you lower it down. That way you don't damage it. And you take it loose and you disassemble everything, then you're good to go. And I'll probably show that on the video whenever I get to it. I have everything marked. 101, 2 of 2, 3 of 3 on the brackets, top and bottom, 2 of 2 up top. That's all I need. I can just leave all that come all in one piece there. So pull it all apart, I can put it all back together same way. Always mark it, that way you know, that way you can put everything back together the same way. On this part right here, I tend to leave all this alone because that's how the thing's lined up. See, even though I got it loose, I went ahead and put me some blaster on all of it anyway. Use some minor adjustments later. But all this here, I'm gonna pull all this off. All I'm gonna have left here is this here, and all that's gonna be all disassembled. This is the part I don't wanna mess with because this is where all my adjustments are. I kinda wanna leave this alone. And just, all this will be in one piece, all that'll be gone on the ground, so this will be easy. Just unloosen these and just pick this up. That's it. Then when I get ready to saw it, all I got to deal with is that pole, and if it falls over on the ground, no big deal. It ain't gonna damage the pole. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this all apart. Got everything marked, and I'm gonna start pulling it apart. Okay, taking this apart, I got the arm off. I popped the 4 screws at the top. See that rope right there? Take that rope and loop it around on the right side, loop it around on the bottom on the left side, and tie it off on your assembly back here, and you lower it. Very simple. There ain't no hard work to it. One person can do it. So you loop it there, around the inside, on both sides, you tie it off, and you lower it down from your assembly in the back. And that's it. That's the hardest part. And the rest of it, you just pull the rest of this assembly off the way I got it marked, and it all go back together. Okay, slowly lowering it. See how I got it tied off right there? Get tied on one end there, loop tied in one end, run around there. And all I gotta do is unloosen it and just lower a little bit at a time. And I'll have it on the ground. Easiest way to do it. All right, you see I just about got it down. Very simple. Loosen a little, back off. Loosen a little, back off. No big deal. Just use those 2 holes right there, loop it around there and tie it around. No big deal. Do it real slow. Shouldn't have no problem. Okay, she's on the ground. I'm gonna pull my rope out. There you go. This is a 6-foot dish, 6-foot fiberglass. It's about 6 foot off the ground, 7 foot off the ground. Did it myself. Very easy. If you do it slow, use a rope, tie it off, just kind of lower it, you're good to go. I've done many like this. Matter of fact, a couple of years back, we got 2 10-foot mesh dish, and believe it or not, I got them all in there with actuator, pole and everything, both of them in this truck. I took everything apart completely. I stacked 8 ribs up on this side, 2 actuator arms, 2 poles, and a assembly in the back, 2 assemblies, all fitted right here in this truck. But here's the thing about it, you got to take them completely apart. You're better off, that way you don't damage anything. Except for a little bit of rust on the side, this thing here's gonna work pretty good for KU. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my assembly down, load her up and head to the house. Okay, about got all this down, I got me a cut all this through on this here. You don't want to just cut it straight through. You want to kind of bend it like that, then kind of wobble it. You want to kind of catch it and bring it on down. That's when you get all that weight off of it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that on down, and I'm going to haul this mess to the house, and I'm done. Okay, when cutting this down, I had to realize I had to pull this assembly out. So make sure I got a good video of it, because I got to pull all this out here. All this here's got to come up. So I need to take a good picture of it. Well, I got it down. I wasn't gonna cut this pole even with the ground, but I got me a battery operated demolition saw and keep running the battery down this thing so thick. I'm gonna let it go like that. The reason is it's probably safer like that, because somebody can run over it and bust a tire. So I'm gonna leave it like it is. Got it all loaded up and ready to go. Head to the house. Got me a little project now. Okay, there's my other setup right over there. Okay. I'm gonna unload this thing right here. This is the best place to put it right here. Got a good view here that way, all the way here from over there, back over that way. So I'm gonna unload this dish and I'm gonna put it right here. I'd say about right here. I'm gonna set this thing right here. That's where it's going, right there. So The next day or so, I'm gonna go get some concrete and concrete this thing in the ground, that pole. And I'm gonna go up about this high with it. And I'm gonna set her on the pole. I'm gonna get it on off the truck. That's it. Got it off the truck, ready to be assimilated or assembled. I'm thinking the Borg, assimilated. Now this is not the Borg. This is a satellite dish. So I'm ready to. I'm gonna put my hole right here. I'm gonna take that pole right there and bend it and set her up. That pole's gonna stick up about this high, whichever I want it. Then it should be easy to mount it because that thing was, when I pulled it down, it was, I bet that thing was about 7 feet in the air at the bottom. It's gonna be easy to put it back. All I can dig me a hole right here, pull that pole in there, concrete it in, good to go. I have to level, I have to pull all this off, but no problem. What the heck of an LNB is this? That's a big old thing. That thing looks like a motor. But I'm gonna pull that mess off. I might try to put me a C-band LNB on and see if it'll work. But I think this is a 5.5 footer. It's not quite 6, it's a 5.5. But I'm gonna play around with it when I can get some time to it, and I'm gonna put her all back together. This is my angle bracket. I had to take it off when I dropped the pole because this was some kind of some cheap metal. I was afraid it'd bend, so I had to pull this off. Had no choice. But I got everything marked. See, I got my threads marked here, right there. See, I got it marked. This is where I put my bolt here. Once I put this bracket back on there, you count 50 from the top and 28 from the bottom. You line right back up. Put my bracket back on there. That's the hardest part, with lining it up right there. Get that bracket. Everything should match up though. Got everything marked. That's one thing about it. When you take something like that, mark everything. That way you put everything back the way you took it. So I'm gonna get onto this one day. Probably starting next week, I'm gonna put it in the ground and put my pole, let it set up. Then I'll start putting it together. Okay. I took my cap off. I got this all unseized up. I put some of this here. What I do is they're tight. This is basically, you screw that in. This kind of sets it, and you put it against there to tighten it up, and you're set. So what I usually do, I got it all loose and everything, broke loose. I use me a little blaster. What I do is I back off on these here big ones first, and then I can go ahead and get it all up in there, squirt it, and then loosen it up, let it sit for about 5-6 minutes. They break right off easy. So what I'm gonna do, let it sit here till I'm ready to put it all back together. Gotta dig me a hole. And what I'm gonna do, once I get it all, everything's all good now, and what I do is I screw it down, and I screw this down to here. That way, if it rains or anything like that, the crows won't get back up, and I screw it all back down there. And it should be fine. I can just kind of just set it up like that till I'm ready to use it, and I'm good to go. So the next thing I need to do is go and dig me a hole and set this, and go ahead and put my assembly back on there, put my dish back on there. I'll figure out what I'm gonna do with that later. It's like a motor. That thing is so old. I figure this thing's like about 83, 84, maybe a little later. But look at that thing. It's a ku lnb. Look at the size of that thing. But I'm gonna take it all apart. I'm gonna see if I can kind of stick my other stuff inside. Maybe I can clean all that mess out of there and put the guts of my other stuff in there and make it. I want to try to bring this back to original as best way I can. So maybe I can leave that on there. But like I said, I'm ready to go ahead and dig my hole and put my mount back on there. Once I set my pole, put my mounts back on there, put that back. That goes back on here, and I line this up with it right here. Get my degree angles right here. Once I get it all lined back, then I go ahead and put my LNB assembly on there, and I'll put my dish on there last. I always go to reverse. It makes it a lot easier than the way I took it apart. I always go to reverse. But that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and get on this thing. Okay, I'm starting to put this thing back together. I got it in the ground, got it concrete, got me 2 bags, 80-pound Quick Creek put in there. Busted up me a couple blocks, put in there as well. Setting pretty good, all level all the way around. Now it's time to put this thing back together. Also level here up top. All the way around, same way here. All the way around. Good deal. We're good, ready to put it all back together. Very unique. This thing here weighs a ton. What I'm probably going to do on this, take it all apart, gut everything out. If I can make my assembly fit in here, then I can stick it out here, make it line up just as good, or I'll just remove this. I kind of want to bring it back the same way it actually looked in its original condition. I really don't need this, so if I have to, I'll just take this off. There's mounting bolts here, so I can put my LNB right in here and mount it right here if I have to. So I'm going to get on this and get this thing back together. Also, I'm going to let this thing set up for about, well, I got to go to work tomorrow and I got to work on the weekend. So that's good. I'll let this thing set up for about a week, plenty of time to dry in, and I'll put it all back together the same way I took it apart. Just do the opposite of the way I took it apart, put it back together just the opposite way. Well, got other things to do. I'm going to get back on this and let this sit up for about a week, and I'll get back on this. All right, it is time to reassemble this thing. Okay, I put this piece on. I put this piece on top, and I got to put my 3 bolts in there. And it's time to go ahead and get this thing together. All right, I got this mounting bracket. I only got my bolt in there, my 2 bolts. Another little tip. I marked my threads 28 from the bottom, and I marked them 50 from the top. That way, I can get everything lined back up the way it was when I took it down. Now, I only took it down about 20 miles here, so I don't think the elevation is going to make that much difference anyway, one way or the other. So, like I said, I marked my threads, counting 50 from the top, 28 from the bottom. So I count 28 from the bottom, and I tighten this up. Well, naturally, when I count 50 from the top to the bottom, wherever I'm bottomed out, that's from the bottom of my bow to go. And naturally, I'll just bring this back up and turn that back up and adjust it, and everything should fall right into place. That's just a little old tip. That way you can get your elevation pretty much close to where you was. Especially if you got it, say, like down the road or something, everything should line up. Then all you got to do is get everything back, put everything back the way you had it. Then all you got to do is worry about your azimuth, east and west. Then you should be pretty good. Okay, got that part together. All I got to do is put that arm on there, put my bracket on, clean my dish up, put it on, and put my arm assembly. Kind of clean it up, put that little bit left on there, put that on there last. Okay, I'm still on this. I made my decision. I'm going to go ahead and, I got that arm there. I'm going to go ahead and attach this arm first. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull this off here. It looks like a motor. It's not a motor. It's an LNB. It's a ku LNB. Probably from the early 80s, mid 80s. I don't know. But I'm going to pull this off. You see I got a bracket here, so I'm just going to break this loose from here. Leave this here and just put me a regular ku LNB on here. And I'm going to go ahead and take this in the house and disassemble and find out what it's all about. But in the meantime, I'm going to put me a regular LNB on here. Mount this on here, put my brackets on, and clean my dish up, and I'm going to put it on there. After that, I probably can leave these arms off because these arms are attached to this here, and I'm going to remove this. So I probably can get by and just use this and attach my LNB here once I remove this. That should work fine. Then I'm going to go ahead and attach all that up and take this in the house and just find out what this is all about in here. It's old. It's probably obsolete. I'm going to take it apart and see what's in it. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go in the house and get me a universal LNB. Once I pull this off here, and I'm going to put it on here. Once I line it up, go ahead and line it up and get it all good to go. And like I say, I'm just going to leave these brackets off here because they attach to this here. See, they attach right here, see. So I'm going to just take this off here. I think I can just get by with this. I don't need these brackets until I put it back in its original condition. So in the meantime, I'm going to pull this off and just slap a regular LNB on there and get it going and get everything together and find me a signal, then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna run me a trench and I'm just gonna tie in over there. I got one dish over there which I pointed at, that small one right there. It's pretty well defunct. It was aimed at 91 West, KU 91 West is gone. So I'm gonna probably just take that loose and tie into that wire and tie into my house and just run me a trench and tie in right over there. But in the meantime, once I get it all together, I'm gonna get my signal meter and I'm probably gonna shoot for either 103 West KU or Galaxy 16 West KU at 99 West. Since everything's pretty much left, that's about my go-to satellites. And I'm gonna see if I can, since this is a 5-foot dish and I've been using 36 inches, I'm gonna see if I can get those weak transponders with this bigger dish. If I have no luck, I might just stick this over there and point it toward the east and go for some of them Mexican, Brazilian satellites. And on KU, seems like they have a lot more on there to offer than they do on these western birds over here in the United States. I can probably aim towards some of those eastern satellites since I got a clear view, probably from 30 West all the way to 133 West. So I got a pretty good clear view, so I can pretty much have a pretty wide choice where I want to point it. By the way, I believe this thing was pointed when I originally took it down. It was pointed at 127 West. And back then they had KU on 127 and 125. They had data up. All that's gone now, so once I get all this up and put together, I'm still gonna have to, can't go by this, I'm gonna still have to adjust my elevation to find one of those other two, either 103 or West or 99 West. So I'm still gonna have to adjust this once I get it all together. So I'm gonna go ahead and get everything together and get this thing done. I'm just looking at this LNB assembly here. Next Star. I'm pretty sure it's defunct by now. Look at how all this stuff's hooked up. You got your degrees, you turn your angles here. I guess you stick this here and just put a screwdriver in, you turn it, you adjust your skew. But this is something that's ancient. But I'm just gonna take this part off here. I'm gonna have to get this off here and pull this off. Everything's Allen wrench. I gotta get in here to get these off here to get this off this clamp. But in order to do that, I gotta take this off. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I'm just gonna leave this piece here, this bracket, pull all this off and pull this out and just leave the bracket here to mount me a universal. See if I can mount me a universal in here between this bracket assembly here. Once I pull this off, and I should be good to go. Okay, coming along. Okay, I pulled that motor. I mean, not motor. The LNB to look like a motor. I pulled that off and I just use them rings. The rings will do fine. I'll put my LNB through here and it should line up pretty good. Another thing. These are all commercial grade, I would assume. So, they all use machine screws. With machine screws, you got an issue. Lots of times, these got to match up exactly when you put them back together. If you don't, you turn that way, it's going to cross thread that. You got to have it exactly the same way. And in some cases, if you use this one over here, it'll cross thread it as well. So make sure you got all these lined up correctly, because I had a time trying to get them threaded in because I had my screws all mixed up. And it took me a while to figure it out. So that's a tip. When you take these commercial dishes down, lots of times everything's machined to fit. And if you get your screws and bolts mixed up, you're gonna have a time. I had a time with this because this thing here was machined in there, right there, and man, I just had to keep backing it out. It would never go in, and I had the wrong screw because this screw went here and this one went here, and they're the same, but the threads are a little bit different. I don't know, maybe sitting up for a while, maybe there's crud in the threads or whatever, but I had to just keep working with it till I find the right one would fit. And when I finally got it called in, I did this here number here and finally got it to go in. Hopefully it didn't cross thread, but everything is machined on these things. So you got to make sure everything matches when you put it all back together, because if you don't, you're going to have a time. Now them over there, they were made commercially. There's no problem with those. But these things here, man, I don't know. But when they bought this thing new, they probably paid a bundle for it. But that's the way it is with the commercial machine. Everything's machined. So you have a time getting these bolts in if you don't make sure they lined up. So my suggestion is, I don't know if it's up to you. Put you a little A or something and put an A. Mark everything, because if you don't, man, it's going to have a hard time, because them threads there, look at there, you can just look at these threads and tell they're different just looking at them. So same way here and here, so make sure you get these right. Those are always right. That's when somebody told me, when you take one of these apart, you always put your bolts back in there. That's why I had all this in here. I stuck it all back in there when so this was all lined up. This is going to go in there fine. But I had a time with that. So that's just a little old tip. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing on together. I'm gonna go ahead and wash this thing next, and I'll get that thing mounted on here and get this thing done. Because this has been a pain to do this. I thought it'd go together easy, but not so easy. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing together. See, all they had to done is put a bolt here and a bolt here, but they're not gonna do that, because back in the day, man, they built these things like tanks. And look at it. I mean, you got 4 bolts holding this arm up. Plus you got this here where it threads in here. I mean, they built these things like tanks. They don't build stuff like this no more. But you know what? Once this thing is together, it'll be here for the rest of my days, and probably somebody beyond me, they'll still be here, because this thing here's gonna be here for a long time. It's built like a tank. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing finished up and get off my rant. Okay, I got my arm on there. All I gotta do is put them 2 mounts on the back here and put my dish on. I clean my dish up. This is gonna work great. If you look real close, you will see the mesh in here. Basically, it's your screen wire. That's gonna work great. Should actually smaller. The mesh on this is actually smaller than those dishes over there, about half the width. So these are going to work great. However, I did find a small crack in here. Let's see, right here, right there. Somebody had put some JB weld on the back, but that's no big deal. This will be on the side once I get it mounted, so I'm just going to probably just go ahead and mount the dish. And I'm going to put some sealer there, JB weld or something in there, put right back there. And seal that back. That should be fine, because that's right there on the edge. Like I say, look at that mesh. You can see that mesh in there. That's what you got on most fiberglass dishes. But this stuff here is so small for KU, it looks great. So when you look at this here, and compare it to these here, look how much bigger those are right there. Looking at all these dishes, look how much bigger that is. This one here too. A lot big difference. I mean, I can stick a whole pencil lead up into that, and it'll still pick up KU, believe it or not, on these. Yeah, I can stick a pencil right through there and it'll still pick up KU on these 10-footers here. But when you compare that to this, see how small them, that's just like regular screen they stuck up in here. And they just kind of overlapped it right there. This is going to work great. So I should definitely get good KU out of this. And might even try to see if I can put a C-band on there, but I'm probably going to go with KU on this. Either Galaxy 16 or a 103 West, whatever's on 103 West now. And 99 West, that's probably what I'm going to put this. So all I got to do is go ahead and get my mounts, put my mounts on there, cross pieces, top and bottom back this way, and pick this up and set it up on there. Should be great, should be easy, because how low that thing is, it should just sit right in that cradle. Instead of having to set it way up there 6 feet high, I cut it off and got it where I want it. These things are 22,000 miles in the sky, I don't think this thing being lowered to the ground is gonna make that much difference. Maybe they wanted to park cars under it. Maybe that's why they had it so high. But this is gonna work great. So I'm gonna go ahead and get on this and get this done. Okay, continue on with this. So what I did, I always use my head, I don't use my back. So what I did, I put the dish, set it up in the truck, drove around here, backed up here, positioned my assembly. That's why I don't want to have that thing 6 feet high. I want to make this easy. I just roll it off. Very simple. I'll get one bolt in here, I'll spin it, put one bolt in there. Then I'll lock it down. I'll ease up on my truck a little bit. It ain't gonna go nowhere. I'll put 2 bolts in this thing. Then I'll just kind of twist it and line it up and put 2 up here. I'll put 2 on the bottom and put it together, and that's it. That way, one person can do this. It don't take 2. It's very simple. See, that's not even the truck. I can actually pull the truck up. It's not even on the truck. So I can actually just kind of roll it over a little bit, and it'll line up and put my bolts in, put my 2 bolts in the top, and of course spin it around. It'll line up. Then I go ahead and get my truck out of the way, start putting my bolts in. There's 8 bolts, hose that up, and that's it. And all I got to do is put my LNB on there, and we're good. Continuing on this, you see I got up here, and what I did was spin it around, and I got my 1 bolt in there. And see, all I got to do now, pick it up, set it at bottom, and all these will line up. And everything should line up. I have to pull my truck up out of the way because it's going to drop down a little bit. Everything should line up. Then all I got to do, tighten it up, put my LNB assembly on there, and that's it. All good. Perfect. Okay, it's time to get this thing lined up. I'm gonna start working on this LNB. It's all set, of course. What I need to do is spray paint these down. This is the shoulder. This goes on the bottom. This goes on the top, which is gonna make my my arms go in like that. So it's pretty well offset. So the issue I have right here is this come off of it. This is actually LNB. Actually, this thing went on here. It was mounted on here, and it spins around. And if you see, it's a single polarity. This thing was designed to spin around on a single polarity, and that's how they locked in. So I'm replacing all this. This is all junk. So what I'm gonna do, I got my junk box here. What I'm gonna do is find the signal. I'm gonna take my scalar ring, and once I get these on there, then I'm gonna see if I can mount this scalar ring to those arms. Then what I'm gonna do, just to find me a signal, I'm gonna take this old school CKU LNB. I'm gonna mount it on there and see if I can find Galaxy 16. You see, I got the C-band LNB and as well as a KU LNB on here. All I want to do is find a signal. When I get a good signal, then I'm going to pull all this mess off here. Then I'm going to modify this horn here, which come off this old LNB right here, and attach these arms to it. I'm going to cut this off right here, and find some way to mount a KU LNB into here. And I thought about that, and well, if that don't work, I got very many options. We know it's going to work one way or the other. And this don't work, then I'm going to try another approach. Then, of course, I've thought about finding another approach. I thought about taking 2 of these Aspen LNBs. Since this is on a single feed, they only had 1 wire for 1 polarity. What I'll do is I'll run 2, and I'll run a switch. And I think this will work. I'll get 2 of these small Aspen LNBs, and what I'll do, I'll have one here mounted here. then I'll kind of configure. I got another couple attachments. I can put one of these over here, put one here, and modify this feed horn where I can have single polarity, both polarities coming on both. And basically, I'm gonna try to, since I have a switch, they won't be both active at one time. I'll be running through a switch, A/B switch. Then when I go to horizontal, I'll be on one switch, and I go to vertical, I'll be on another switch. So I'm gonna try that as well. See if that'll work. It's just to see if it'll work. And if that don't work, then I got another option. I can use one of those LNBs off one of those, kind of rig it up with a scalar ring on this one here, pull all that off, and kind of tie it into this. So I got 3 different options. Or if I wanted to, I got 2 C-band LNBs, and well, I was going to do that on a bigger dish, on a 12-footer once I get it going. I'm going to take 2 C-band LNBs and do the same thing here, because these are only single polarity. You have to have a motor to change the polarity on those. So on those, on the one I'm going to put up in the future over there is like a 12-footer. I plan on splitting these 2 ways and run 2 C-band LNBs, one for horizontal and vertical, modify this and put a switch on it in between my outputs. So I tried that. Now that's on a different dish. But right now I got 3 different options. I can go with what I got, put a scalar ring on there, something like this here, and use something like this with a KU LNB modified. I can modify it, or I can use this here. This is what I'm going to use to find the signal. Then once I find the signal, I'm going to take all this off and see if I can modify all this stuff. But that's what I'm going to try. So I'm going to get on it. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and, I got all my stuff marked there. I'm going to go ahead and wire brush those off and spray paint them things white. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. I'm going to go right here with this first option here, and I'm going to go ahead and mount this. Then I'm going to go from there so I can see what I can do with this.